Shadows to Life, Chapter 5, Hangover, September 21st. The next morning, Damien woke to find the giant bombshell mess he'd apparently made the night before, during his drunken festivities. He, of course, had no memory of anything that had occurred, and could only shake his head at it. Even this small action elicited a wince, accompanied by a rather nasty burp of old beer and... was it pickles? Oh, so stupid. He got out of bed and was unsurprised to find that he was naked. He often inexplicably stripped down when he drank. At least, he thought, as he grabbed his boxers off a lamp, this time he could find his underwear. Throwing his dirty clothes into the hamper, he hopped into the shower, letting the warm water beat into his sore muscles, another mystery from his drinking binges. "You're being quiet," Damien said aloud as he scrubbed his hair. In his apartment was the only place he could talk to Leach in a normal voice, without worrying about others questioning his sanity.
"Well, you know how much I enjoy evenings like last night. I usually only tell you when you're doing something stupid."
Damien scowled. And going on a... He opened the shower curtain and glanced up at the clock. 12-hour drinking binge to avoid the stressful research that I need to do doesn't qualify as something stupid?
Not to me, it doesn't.
Leach, I lost almost a full day. How can a loss of time help me? I should have been more diligent and started my research right away.
You see, I'm talking now because you're being stupid. Damien, the body takes what it needs, and you needed it last night.
If Damien didn't know better, he would have sworn that Leach sounded compassionate there. But he did know better. He swiped the shower curtain aside and toweled himself off while he pondered what Leach had said. Finally, deciding that what was done, Damien focused on more pressing matters. Whatever. Let's get down to business. Tell me what I need to know to defeat Daniel.
Come now, Damien. You know it doesn't work like that. I'm not a teacher.
His shadow said the word with such loathing it frustrated him. A teacher was exactly what he needed, not a satirical monkey on his back. Damien gritted his teeth as he retorted, "Not a very good one, anyway."
"Or a caring one. Yes. But knowledge gained is never as powerful as knowledge earned. Think of me as a reference book. What would you know?"
Damien sighed in surrender and put on his clothes, heading out to his living room. "Explain Daniel's powers, then."
"Daniel can use any of the major virtues, but specializes in temperance."
He waited for a moment, hoping Leach would elaborate before asking, "Which does what?"
"You know what it does."
As much as he was used to this dance with Leach, it never became any easier or less irritating. "Please explain in more detail. Howard said that my powers have an edge against Daniel's because of how his focus works, or something. Why is that?"
"You never studied very well, did you?"
"I never really had the opportunity," he returned with heat.
"Of course you did. You just chose to read your precious comic books instead of studying from the manuals that could save your life."
"Just tell me." Damien didn't have time for Leach's self-righteous crap. His shadow had certainly never encouraged him to study when he had had the opportunity.
"Temperance is constant mindfulness of others and one's surroundings, practicing self-control, abstention, moderation, zero-sum, and deferred gratification."
Again there was a deep loathing in Leach's voice, or whatever he used to speak. But again Damien was at a loss. "Thanks, that tells me nothing," he said, and walked over to his couch where he sat down heavily and leaned back.
"It should tell you everything."
"How?" Damien could almost hear Leach sigh in exasperation.
"Shadows like me are attached to their hosts, correct?"
"Yeah?"
"So vassals that specialize in temperance can sense where we are. They can see through illusions even with their eyes closed. A siphon cannot hide from a temperance specialist."
"Yeah, Howard talked about that. But it seems like kind of a crappy power, right?"
Against someone like you, yes, terribly. Against someone like Burns, however...
Damien sat up. It would completely nullify someone like Burns.
Which should tell you something about Howard as well.
Damien's eyes widened at the revelation.
Howard specializes in pride? He'd always wondered about that. Now he knew. So, you're not a complete oaf after all.
More than I can say for you,
says the chap who didn't even understand his own advantage.
Damien ignored the comment. So that's what Howard meant when he said my blink powers might be too fast for Daniel.
That's the simple explanation, yes. But I don't expect anything else from you anymore.
Again, Damien ignored the barb and focused on the more important matter of understanding the advantage of certain powers over others. The whole thing seemed so complicated. Less like a set of rules and more like guidelines. A random thought occurred to him. Leech, can vassals shoot guns? Or do they tend to blow up in their hands like siphons?
The energy that is imparted upon vassals is different than shadows. But yes, it does tend to have a similar effect on combustible substances like TNT and gunpowder.
But why doesn't it have the same effect on something like gasoline?
Who knows, my host?
Damien looked over his shoulder mistrustfully at his shadow, but continued on to his next random question. Leech was being a lot more helpful than usual. Best to take advantage of it while he could. Do you know how Scratch controls her animals?
No, actually, I don't.
Damien looked even more skeptically at his shadow. However, Leech continued to hover, his gaze as irritatingly inscrutable as ever.
It's true, Damien. And more importantly, I will tell you this. You are not the only one who wants to know.
Really? What do you mean?
You are aware, I assume, that no one, including Howard, knows how she controls her beasts?
Howard doesn't even know? Damien blurted.
No. And what's more, Howard's shadow doesn't know either.
Damien reeled from the bombshell of information.
If a shadow as old and knowledgeable as Howard's didn't even know, then it was quite possible that no living siphon knew either. So why hasn't Howard given Scratch more personal attention? Believe me, he is quite interested in her.
Damien shivered at the thought of having a man like Howard invested in what he did. But for now, there were more important matters to concentrate on, like how he was going to survive to use the valuable information that Leech had not so graciously given him. Damien swallowed audibly and changed the subject. If I'm going to be fighting Daniel while trying to get the most from my blink powers, then I should learn sword techniques that will cover multiple angles of attack. I guess it's time to pay Saito-sensei another visit.
Which means it's time to feed.
Damien just nodded and repressed another shudder. As much as he hated it, there was no other way.
Thus concludes another chapter of Shadows to Life. If you enjoyed it, you can help me out by following me on Twitter at RobVJohnson and telling your friends. Once I get enough followers, I'm going to change it to a weekly podcast. See you next time.